Morning. Good morning.
How was your weekend?
It's pretty good. How was yours?
Pretty good.
I'm looking forward to next weekend. It'll be a 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm a new student K1 this time.
Do you have your schedule
Yes.
so I can see that? I think I found you, but let's double check. Yep, you're in the right place. What math class have you been in the first 2 weeks?
Algebra 2.
Algebra 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did that before in my sophomore year, so that's what I changed.
Okay, I'll have to get you the work that you need to get caught up, but for right now, I'll have you up here. We've got a seating chart. To your left, the worksheet on the desk. Yep, you need that.
You need a calculator?
I don't think. Well, I don't know. It never hurts to grab one. Worst case is you just don't use it. Madison Collins. Ryan Reed. Okay, I need y'all to get out the number 9 assignment out of your book bag, please. Okay, so I did not see y'all at the end of last week because it was a B week. I believe this is an A week. I'll have to double check. But we need to wrap up our work with section 4.2. So first day we saw section 4.2, we took some notes. We talked about how most of it was unit circle. There's a couple other little things sprinkled on there. Then the last time I saw you, the second day we looked at it, we practiced some of it out of the book assignment. And I think you guys had some questions that I probably put you off on because not everybody was there yet and I needed everyone to be there with me. So very good chance that you need help with questions 37 through 42. So I'm going to start off with those in just a second. Then I'll take whatever other questions you weren't able to figure out as part of your homework. You're supposed to have your book worked out. And then finally wrap it up with today's worksheet. So the handout y'all picked up on your way in is number 10 for your binder, so please number it as number 10. And again, we do not do this all year long, but this is another practice quiz. So the front of this is pretty similar to what your quiz will look like. The back is a second practice quiz. So as somebody's asking a question that you don't need help with, or if you didn't have any book questions, you can go straight to the practice quiz. Try it out, see how you do, see if you're happy with how well you've learned it so far, or how much more time you need to put into it, and what topics you may need. All right, so looking at 37 through 42, Again, I'm just starting off with those because I try not to answer those questions the first day because not everyone's quite ready. But actually, 37 through 40 have a couple ways we could work these. So I'll show you both so that hopefully you can work with either one. And then the last two, 41 and 42, we'll have to do a little bit differently. Okay, so here's 37. We've got one piece of information given to us, the sine of some angle. They're not telling us what the angle is. Something generic t is a half. And from that, we're supposed to be able to determine what the sine of negative t would be and what the cosecant of negative t would be. Well, if we can figure out part A, B is talking about the same angle, and cosecant is just the reciprocal of sine. So if we can figure out this answer, we can just flip it over and we have that answer. So this is the big one. So one way you can do this is you could try to do it visually. And what I mean by that is try to, even though you don't know how big angle T is, although maybe you should know just based on this ratio, but just pretend and sketch it. Say, here's angle T, I'm just doing it as a visual. Well, if sine gives us the y values on the unit circle, then this picture kind of represents the information given to you, but this is a visual. The way I think this might help you is that if this is positive t, if you want to know negative t, it's going to be the same amount of a turn, but in the negative direction. So roughly, that's what I would guess to make negative t to look like. Does that make sense? However much this one's opening up is how much this one's opening down. And if I want to know the sine, I want to know the y value. Well, now that we've got a picture, however much this one was going up is now how much this one's going down. So that's one way to figure out that that is negative 1/2. And again, these two are talking about the same angle. Cosecant's the reciprocal, so flip it over and you're done. A second way to do this, and this is going to be more beneficial long term because we're going to need this for other stuff. But I specifically told you that you will need to know which trig functions are even and which are odd. This is a second way to work the same question. There's 2 that are even and 4 that are odd. And because sine is odd, if you know what it means to be odd, you can also work this question. Whether I plug in a positive angle or the negative version of that angle, so in this case t versus negative t, they can only be equal if you multiply one of them by a negative. That's what it means to be odd. They're not equal naturally. You have to multiply one by a negative. You've got to change the sign. So that's all I would have done. I would have said sine is odd, so this has to be multiplied by -1, and I would be done. This is true for all odd functions. Even functions, it stays the same. Whether it's a positive or a negative angle, you don't need to multiply anything by a negative. They're just equal. Okay, so same idea for 38. You could do the same 2 ways. It's basically the same type of question. If you just glance at your practice quiz doesn't have a ton of these on there, but there are a couple, so I suspect that your real quiz is going to have a couple as well. This time they give me negative t, but they want to know the sine of positive t. Oops. And then cosecant of positive t. But once again, if you can figure out A, B is talking about the same angle, these are reciprocal, so I can just flip this answer over. I really need to be careful with part A though. So the fast way is, once again, to say, well, sine's an odd function, so these two can only be equal if I multiply this by a negative. T versus negative t, it has to be the opposite value. and then this one's just the reciprocal of this. That's the quickest way, but you have to memorize what trig functions are even, what trig functions are odd, and what it means to be odd and even. Have to multiply by a negative for those to be equal. If I multiply this by a negative, it's equal to this one. The longer way, which still also works on this one, is to try to do the visual. I don't know how big negative t is, but I will try to draw it. The sign at negative t is 3/8. Now with these numbers, this one's a little harder to kind of figure out, because really what I should do, if sine is positive and sine is the y value, it should be up here. So negative t is actually more like here. That's a little bit harder to see than negative. So let's just kind of fudge it and just say negative t is here. Again, what I'm saying is this is kind of weird because this is a positive y value and I'm drawing it negative. But if this is roughly what negative t looks like, then positive t is going to be the same turn, but in the positive direction. And what you need to see is that this y distance is the same as this y distance, so 3/8, but they're going in opposite directions. So I've got this one going down, so really it should be negative, but this is the information they gave to me. This one's going the opposite way, so negative 3/8. That would be the kind of visual approach. But again, that one's kind of weird based on that angle and that size. So it's doable, but again, with the picture, you can see it's going the opposite direction and same y value, so same sine value otherwise, other than the direction. Okay, this also applies for cosine, which is 39. So they give us one piece of information, and we can either use the even odd stuff to figure out this one, and then if we can get A right, then B is usually quite a bit easier. Okay, so again, the fastest way to know even odd, because cosine is even, whether you plug in a positive t or a negative t, 30 degrees or negative 30 degrees, theta or negative theta, those two will be equal. So if this one's negative 1/5, this one's negative 1/5. That's the quickest and easiest way to do that. Now be careful here. This one is referring to this angle, although I guess you'd get it right anyway. So reciprocal gives you this. If you want to double check your work on the quiz, what I would suggest is make a quick little picture, try to sketch a negative t angle. Again, we don't know how big it is, so we just have to estimate. We're going to call this negative 1/5, although this one's also a little weird, while the picture may not be the best. I really should draw this a little bit bigger. Remember, cosine's the x values on the unit circle, that's why I'm putting it as the x value. But now this looks a little bit more accurate. Here's negative t, and however big I sketch negative t to be, positive t is going to be the same amount of a turn, but in the positive direction. And if you want to know the cosine of positive t, you want to know the x value of positive t. So even with my poor sketch here, I can see these have the same x value, which means they have the same cosine. So second way to see that these answers are the same. Okay with that? Okay, looks like we've got one more cosine like these, and then the other two we pretty much have to sketch the picture on. We can't just use even and odd. So 40 gave us this. It wants to know the cosine of negative t and the secant of negative t. Now, one more plug for knowing the even and odd. Because I know cosine's even, I know cosine of positive t is the same thing as cosine of negative t. And I'm done. These two are just reciprocals. They're talking about the same angle, so flip it over. This can be a 3-second question. If you don't memorize which ones are even and odd, and you don't know what it means to be even and odd, again, you need to know that for later on anyway. Really, your best hope is to say, I will try to sketch t so that he has a negative cosine. I don't know if that's what t actually looks like, but that's my best guess. And then I can visualize negative t by drawing the same angle but in the negative direction. And then that is enough to see that they have the same x value, so they have the same cosine value. Just a visual approach to the same thing. Okay, so those four are the only type of those. Is there a deeper question or any follow-up you guys want to ask on that? I don't think it's bad for you to try both ways, by the way. Might help you catch some mistakes on your quiz. But ultimately, if it's cosine, you keep it the same. I'm sorry, if it's even, you keep it the same, which is cosine or secant. If it's odd, you multiply by -1, which would be sine, cosecant, tangent, and cotangent. Okay, the last two in this section, you can't just do even and odd, unfortunately. You have to go about this with the picture. And I've never found a very reliable way to do this without a picture. So I need to try to give myself a visual of this. So I don't know how big angle t is, but if sine is positive and sine's the y values on the unit circle, I know it should be in quadrant 1 or 2. So I'm just going to make it easy on myself. I'll pick quadrant 1, sine is the y value. Now, I did say go ahead and try these questions last time. The most common mistake is for you guys to try to add pi to your answer or something like that. But what this pi and this pi are doing are helping you find the location. So you shouldn't be adding or subtracting pi to your ratio, two different things. So this one's saying if I start off at pi, which is over here, but then take away from that angle however big t is. So if I'm calling t roughly this big, that's how much I want to subtract off of pi. So now this angle is like pi take away how big I said t was. This is pi minus t. That's my visual. And even though it's not perfect, I want to know the sine of this, so I want to know the y value. Well, he's got the same y value as this one. So if this guy had a sine of 4/5, and this guy has the same y value, his is also 4/5. And then part B, if I start off at t and then add pi, so here's roughly how big t is. Okay, I thought I could erase some of this. Okay, I'm just trying to get some of this out of the way. Okay, if this is how big t is, if I add pi to that, how much around the circle should I turn? Right, halfway around, right? If 2 pi is all the way around, 1 pi is halfway around. So I'm going to go t, that puts me here, plus halfway around, which would roughly be about right there. So this angle is t plus pi. And if I want to know the sine value, I want to know the y value. And so I can see, at least, I've got something to compare it to. If this one's going up 4/5, I can now see, even with my poor sketch of a picture here, this one's going the same amount but down. So negative 4/5. So again, we're not adding pi to our answer or our ratio. We're not taking pi and subtracting away our ratio. We shouldn't have pi in our answer. This is referring to the angle, how it needs to maneuver to find the spot you land on. Okay, and I would ask you to try the last one, but you got a couple to try on your practice quiz. So let me go over one more with you, and then that should exhaust those questions. Okay, so I can't just use even and odd because I'm either starting at pi and then taking away angle t, or starting at t and adding angle pi. So I need to try to give myself a visual of the information given to me. So for some angle t, I'm just going to sketch it because I don't know how big it is. There's a cosine of 4/5. Now that makes a big difference than the last question. Cosine would be the x value, sine is the y value. Okay, and then the part that you have to practice is trying to figure out this location. So if I start off at pi, it's right here, but then turn a little bit less than pi, how much I'm going to turn less than pi is however big angle t is. So if I'm saying t is about this big, that's how much I'm trying to cut out of this. So this represents pi minus how big t is. And even though these points have the same y value, I don't know anything about this guy's y value. They gave me cosine, not sine. But if this guy's going right 4/5, my picture's good enough for me to see now he's going left 4/5. So it would be negative. Cosine's the x value. It's in quadrant 2, so it has to be negative. Okay, versus if I start off at pi, or t, that I started at, and then I add pi, 2 pi is all the way around, so 1 pi is halfway around. So I'm starting at angle t, I'm going halfway around from that, and I want to know cosine, the x value. So if this guy was going right 4/5, I can tell that this guy's going left 4/5. Should not have pi in your answer, and to give yourself a shot there, you really need to sketch a picture. Sketch an angle t, try to sketch what pi minus t would look like. You see that it's the same x length but left. Take the angle t that you sketched, go halfway around your circle so that you can visualize what t plus pi looks like, and instead of going right 4/5, he's also going left 4/5. It's a little bit harder to mess up the signs if you have the picture, because it's obvious whether you're going right or left, or up or down. Okay, so of those questions, before we move on, 37 through 42, is there any of those you want me to talk about again? Ask something in detail? Okay. Then let's go ahead and split into 2 different directions. So if you had other questions from your book assignment, because your homework was to finish that up and to check your answers, so you should know which ones gave you trouble. If you have those questions, go ahead and let me know what they are. If you don't have any other book questions, you can go ahead and start on your practice quiz. Of course, on your practice quiz, you should not be looking at your unit circle notes. You should not be looking at your notes. You're not looking at your book assignment. Try it just to see where you really stand. Those solutions are on my website, so you absolutely should check your work. Learn from your mistakes if you have any, and then you can try it one more time on the back for a second practice quiz. But for those of you with other book questions, which ones can I help out with?
Can you do 54?
Sure. All right, 54 is cosine of negative 7 pi over 2. Is he equal to cosine of pi plus pi over 2? Well, both of these should land on the unit circle, so let's think about where this angle is. You could either add 2 pi, you could keep finding coterminal angles until it sounds familiar. What I would probably do is, do you know that 1 pi over 2 is right here? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to go negative 7 of those. So here's where negative 1 pi over 2 is. Go that distance again for negative 2 pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 4 pi over 2, negative 5 pi over 2, negative 6 pi over 2, negative 7 pi over 2. So some way you've got to find out where that angle lands. You could also convert it to degrees, I guess. But that point on the unit circle is 0, 1. And since it's talking about cosine, I know all of that equals 0. Okay, over here, if I do the same thing, you could actually add these together and get 3 pi over 2 if you want to, which might be nice, or you could just say start off at pi, but then add another pi over 2. Okay, what's the point on the unit circle there?
Oh, 1, 0. Or, no, sorry. 0, -1.
Very good. You got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
And since it's cosine, which one of these two do I want?
The x value.
So 0, right?
Yeah,
So totally different location. This one's on the top of the y-axis. This one's on the bottom of the y-axis. But because it said cosine, this is true because they both equal 0. All of the unit circle values repeat themselves at least once. Cosine's a half in 2 places. Cosine is square root of 3 over 2 in 2 places. It's 0 in 2 places. So just because you're not talking about the same angle doesn't mean that that can't still be true. Okay. What next? Yeah, you need to sign out or leave your phone. No other book questions for anybody? Okay, let me give you a few minutes to start on a practice quiz. Should have plenty of time though. Now, I don't feel like I should have to say this, but I'll say it just in case. If on your practice quiz you start working through here and you end up with decimals all over the place, I would kind of understand why you might do that. But when you go to check your answers on the website, there are no decimal answers. That's not how you should be doing it. These are not, get out your calculator and use your calculator to find these values. The reason why I'm vocalizing it is because if you're not listening to me and you do it anyway, and you don't check your solutions to know that that's not what you're supposed to do, then on the quiz it's going to be real rough for you. It's going to be a really bad grade because we're not looking for decimal answers. If we want you to use a calculator, it'll say use a calculator, round to the nearest thousands. Did I give you guys a hint on how you can sometimes check your answers though? Did we talk about that in here? Okay, I'm going to guess not. So, technically, we do let you use a calculator on this quiz. Not because the calculator is needed or will do any of these questions for you, because again, I don't want decimals. But let's say you worked, I don't know, I don't want to do one on your practice quiz. But let's say that one of the questions was, what is the cosine of pi over 4? Okay, again, this decimal is worth nothing to me. I'm not giving you any points for that, unless it's a calculator question. But if you did some work and you were about to turn in your quiz and you thought the answer was square root of 3 over 2, do you see why your answer can't be correct? These two would have to be the same thing to be right. Does that make sense? So even though I don't want you to write this down as your answer, you can put in your answer as a decimal, and if they're not equivalent, then that can't be your answer. Then maybe you could at least rework the question and say, well, wait. Oh, I think I found my mistake. I think it's actually square root of 2 over 2. Then you could say, okay, those are equivalent, so square root of 2 over 2 is at least possible as an answer. So, I think that's why we've always allowed a calculator there, but please don't give decimal answers. Okay, let me give you a few minutes there, and then I will, once I think some people are finished up there, I will come around and see if I can help out some. I don't know. What do you need? that for right now?
I was just gonna check. I was gonna go to the website to check my if there's active stuff.
Yeah, you can try pulling it up on your phone if you want. I don't know. I can log into GoGuardian and see, but I don't. Somebody else must have locked your Chromebook. I don't know why.
Give it to him with a passcode. Google passcode code.
Yes, I'll get it to you in just a second.
Okay.
I need to print out another. I have it printed out, but I ran out of copies, so give me just a second. I'll print you one.
And, I don't know how to do this. So do you have to take quiz?
You don't have to take it next class, but yes, you'll have to catch up the stuff that you missed. I'm going to get that all to you.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing right now while they're working. Colin, I don't know. I'm looking at your thing on GoGuardian and I can't see that it's
I guess I'll take it. Then.
Can you reset it maybe? Maybe it's left over from last week. website. So you really should go with that one. And in the top right, you'll see like the agendas like these. And that is a kind of snapshot of each day. And in the top left, I do record our class periods. So if there's any of that that you're struggling with, that's not including anything of it. So here are some of the first handouts that they did. So those are gonna look at class reports and stuff. You did my email last week about the stuff that you missed. No, okay, I had emailed it to you, but that's okay. So you need to sign up for our Google Classroom, which there's the code right there. And then this is our class website where you can check your work and solutions and stuff. And the stuff that you missed, that you need to get caught up, it's all there on the website. And in the top left, I have all the class recordings, so if you need help, you can about to come around and I can try to help out if you've got something stumping you or you need a hint about what else to do. Can't update the slide here. The internet's not working on one of these computers. But one of the other things that I needed to add to that is that you guys have some assignments you need to turn in. So once you finish with your practice quiz, if you've not, well, I guess I just opened some of them up, but if you haven't turned in your 4.2 notes, there's a place to do that, Google Classroom, a place for your 4.2 book assignment, and a place for these practice quizzes. So just like with our first little selection, make sure that those are complete and that you've checked your answers, and you will know that you're getting an easy 100% easy points on those. If it's not complete, or you're not checking your work and making corrections, and you will not get full points. You will get the half points. Are you done? Okay. You haven't checked them online yet?
No.
Okay. Now it's not the time for that. You got something else to do there? Check the answers yet? That's fine. I just want to know like what you're struggling with, so I know how to help. Yep. Plot on the circle. Look up the point. I guess you cosine sine, and then after those two diagonals, all together. Yeah. Okay. Well, because when you do, here's your sine divided by cosine, you change it to multiply by the circle LC. You see when you multiply these fractions, the 41 and 41 are going to cancel out, reduce. Yeah, so they're just reducing the fractions. Don't mess it up either. No, you're always welcome to borrow one of mine now, and you're welcome to borrow it until you figure that one out. You're just up there on the chair. So finish the front of the practice quiz. Check your answers. What anything I can help with on it. Well, because you're comparing an angle to an angle plus pi. And if 2 pi is all the way around, 1 pi is halfway. So it's like wherever this angle lands, this angle is halfway around the circle. So if this guy was going left on us, this guy's going right. That's how I'm opposite direction. That's hard to do without doing the study. Just like the book question, you're trying to sketch that T so you can see it, and then you say halfway around lands about here, you're going to see that it's the same X length, but nothing can matter that's the direction. You can check both either. You down with practice quiz? Okay, get your answers. Turn it in. And how can I help you? Well, did you get everything out on practice quiz? Yep, then I guess you're in good shape. We started it on the first day and then we finished it the second day. So we were first period, that was the first day stuff. That one was day 3, I think. The first Friday. For those, if you want to start watching those in class, you can. but just make sure you have it here. That one, we started 2 classes ago, so that would have been Wednesday, I believe. And but the path is out right now, so the path is usually hanging right there, but to make it easy, you can put your name on the board, and bring my path back over to it.
So would this be undefined or with it's dividing by 0, so I'm assuming it's undefined.
Correct.
And the tangent will also be 0. Will that be 0 since it's
Sine over cosine 0 over another number of 0. Yeah, but one of those is off still. So, like here, when you try to flip this over, you said it's division by 0, which is undefined, and I agreed. How'd you get this then?
is a reciprocal of this.
That's secant. Secant's the reciprocal of cosine. So negative 1 flipped over is still negative 1. And that one's what?
0.
We're doing the same thing here. 0 flipped over is undefined, so 0 flipped over is undefined. But you have to remember which ones are reciprocal, because they may not be lined up perfectly.
Yeah, I didn't know
I would circle those questions, so you remember to look at them. Evaluate just means like, what is it equal to? If I asked you to evaluate 3 plus 5, you'd say 8. So not just type it in the calculator, but find that spot on the unit circle, think about the point, and if you know the point, you should be able to
So
do
it
it.
gives like some coordinates.
But it only wants cosine, so it only wants one of those numbers, it doesn't want the whole point.
So this one's the X.
Correct. Yes. Of course, on this practice quiz, as you guys have to ask for a hint or look at your notes for a hint, or you see that you missed something when you check your answers, please, please, please do yourself a favor, circle those questions, and when you review for your quiz, you know exactly what you need to review. If you don't do that, you really need to re-look over all of it. It's not really efficient. But if y'all remember it from Wednesday of last week till now, then you'll probably remember it on Wednesday. So. Anything I can help with? Any other math? Yeah, I bug you guys for questions quite a bit at the start of the year, but I trust that you'll ask when you need help, so. Well, cosecant's the reciprocal of sine, right? So what happens in a fraction if you try to flip over 0? What happens when you can't divide by 0? 0 can't be in your denominator. That's why it's undefined. Same over here. If the tangent's 0, flip it over, you've got 0 in your denominator, which you can't do. So that's why it's exact same reason there's 0 when you find it divide over. Okay, I'm gonna start putting a few of the grades in gradebook real quick, and then I'll come back around in a few minutes, but
Do we need to, when do we need to turn everything in? Just by the end of the
it's due at the start of next class, so before then. Problem is, if you don't do it while you're in here, you may forget about it, so. But remember, always try to grade some early, so if you forget to turn in a page or something, you still have a chance to get full points, so. That's why I want to grade for the people that have turned it in. suggestion I have that if you know you need more practice, but you've done all of the classwork, I put up on the agenda page, just making yourself get a blank piece of paper and trying to make a complete unit circle. Doing that a couple times does help. So if you realize after the practice quizzes that you need more practice, but you don't know what to do, then that is a good suggestion. Of course, you're always welcome to do more book assignment problems too. Just because you have to do some of them for points doesn't mean that you shouldn't go and do some of the others if you know you need to practice. So I will try to leave that up to you. Anybody got any math questions I can come around and help with right now? That's right, don't take questions on quiz day, so you guys have, you'll still have like 30 minutes, but you gotta get them answered today.
Just, can you just go over it again? Just to find the answer.
Sketch a picture. Sketch a bigger picture. That tiny thing on it's gonna be hard to work with. You're just making it harder on yourself. Okay. So somewhere there's T, so sketch a T. Good. And then he has a cosine, which would be the, okay, good. Go ahead and squeeze that in. That's all we really know. And now compare these angles. What's the difference between T and pi plus T? Okay.
So, just,
Okay, that's a pretty good sketch. And you want cosine, so you want the x value there.
so that would just be 8/17.
Because this is basically saying, because it's cosine, this guy's going left this much, but if you go halfway around the circle, now you're going right that much, so positive. But that visual makes it a lot easier to see how to compare. It's too much to try to do it in